Welcome everyone to our webinar, Beyond the Checkbox, Mastering Cloud Compliance in 2025. My name's Tom Kroll and I'm very happy to be here with you today. We have an exciting agenda that will help you navigate the complexities of cloud compliance in the coming years, and we'll go as deep as we can on the upcoming AI compliance hurricane if we have time. So let's not muck about and dive in. First of all, we should start with some introductions. My name is Tom Kroll. I am an independent advisor to Tenable with Lionfish at the moment. I'm a former Gartner analyst, and I'm probably the guy that you swear about most for coming up with this alphabet soup of acronyms. Apologies for that. And with me today, I have my favorite senior security engineer at Tenable, Mr. Ryan Bragg. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks. How are you, Tom?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Ryan will be doing the difficult stuff for me today and showing you the technical side of the product and how we can actually deliver on some of these promises. So let's get into it. So today's agenda, we're going to start by reminding you of the painful current state of cloud compliance. If you're in compliance and you think your life's bad now, okay, you're not alone. And by the end of this webinar, you will understand the ever-evolving landscape of cloud and AI compliance. You will learn how to design a sustainable cloud compliance strategy for 2025 and maybe beyond, and understand the role of AI in enhancing compliance efforts, but also the total compliance nightmare that's the EU AI Act, and we'll try to prepare you for that as best we can. And if we don't get through that, then you will get the slides and you can contact me or Tenable to have a follow-up on that. We're going to have a couple of live demos from Ryan, so you'll get to see the product at work. And there will be a Q&A at the end, so please get your questions in. You can send them in as we're doing it, and we can answer some of them live, but we got a lot of stuff to get through, so let's get into it. So, cloud computing today. Your data center is a hybrid multi-cloud nightmare. Your users, applications, and data are everywhere. New regulations continue to exacerbate our compliance efforts. And then there's AI on the horizon. Are you ready? Well, hopefully after this webinar, you will be slightly closer to ready than you are now. A few stats to get you warmed up. Back in 2020, in my previous role, I predicted that by 2025, 50% of enterprises will adopt intentional multi-cloud, not this accidental thing that we have haphazardly across our business. And the reasons for that were thus: improving availability, selected best of breed capabilities. So if GCP's got better containers, etc., we'll go there. And number 3 is to satisfy compliance requirements. So we didn't just do this to get a better price or avoid vendor lock-in. We did this for addressing broader geographies or compliance requirements like data sovereignty in high-risk systems. Yeah, we brought this on ourselves, but with it comes a whole world of pain as well. We didn't have much of a choice, but how do we cope? I know some of you still have spreadsheets, but it's time to let them go. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Just let them go. All right, so key issues we're going to try and tackle. We'll be looking at the very real problems facing us in our current landscape. Then we'll go on to show how you prepare for tomorrow's challenges and how AI is impacting our efforts. Then we'll put it all together and give you some actionable steps to follow to create a sustainable cloud compliance strategy for 2025. And if we have time, I will get started on some of the AI compliance strategy. That is really the Wild West. So if you could please do me a favor and answer a couple of polls just to level set. I'd like to get an idea of what the level of maturity is, what the level of interest is. So the first one is, what's your current maturity? Ad hoc means we just do compliance when we can. Reactive means, well, we are getting audited, so we go and do it. Automated, well, you're pretty much there. Well done, you. And continuous threat and exposure management means that we've bought all the tools, we've implemented them, and we're doing this thing that's ephemeral that Gartner says is going to happen, and we're continually iterating, and we're getting pure business risk and it's all perfect. And oh well, some of you are doing that, which is pretty awesome. But I'm not going to spoil the results. And then if you don't know, then that's cool.
We'll give it 5 seconds, Tom, huh?
We will. We will. We'll give it a few more seconds. I would fill, but we're going to go on to another poll. So I'm going to wait for the results of that one to come in, and then I'll fill the next one. Okay, so 19% of you said you're doing ad hoc, and that's fine. Most people are. I bet your spreadsheets or your notepads are getting very, very full at this point. Reactive, yep. But a lot I see, that's 26%. We see lots of that. We're getting audited. Quick, get the compliance docs out. It would be nice if we could get to a place where we can continually generate these compliance documents. We don't have to go through. I've done it myself in highly regulated environments with financial regulators. It's a bit of a pain. So, yeah. And then we've got 26% of you, a quarter of you, are doing continuous threat exposure management. I don't believe you, but well done. And then we've got 16%. I don't know. But if you've got any other ones, then let us know in the Q&A. So with that, could you just please answer one more question for me? So given that we had a fair amount of ad hoc and reactive, I'd quite like to know, what is your biggest pain point when it comes to this? So most people say they don't have the headcount, they might not have automation or the budget to buy processes and tools. It could just be that security, DevOps, and compliance are not aligned in their goals. And as ever, other not sure, let us know in the Q&A. So I will let that run, and I will fill while you do that. So let me try and deliver you some content at the same time. So cloud compliance today. Yeah, the cloud compliance landscape in 2025 is more intricate than ever. Organizations are balancing the rapid pace of cloud adoption, the rise of hybrid and multi-cloud architectures, and the expanding patchwork of regulations. Compliance is no longer just a box-checking exercise, as mentioned in the title. It's a critical element of risk management and business continuity. So the poll is in. So 44% of you, a whopping 44%, are saying that your biggest cloud compliance pain is lack of security skills and resources to implement effective compliance. Yeah, and that's what I would expect to see. We had a poll this morning and it was 50%. So you are not alone. Nobody can get the human resources to do it. Then we've got 15% say insufficient processes or tools to implement effective multi-cloud compliance monitoring. Well, hopefully that's something we can help you with today. And you know, the reality is that we're just not going to find enough people to do all this compliance work. So why don't we automate it? But once we get these tools in and integrated, it does it for us. And Ryan will be showing you that. 26% of you said that it's communication between security, DevOps, and compliance teams. Yes, it's not just communication. It's probably badly worded that, but there's different alignments. Security people tend to look at technical controls and governance risk. Well, compliance teams tend to be more like, well, can we report these on a regular basis and show prove that we're meeting our compliance obligations? And we just got only 3% say other. All right, so I think we covered most of the bases, but let us know what that was in the Q&A if you can. Right, so as I was saying, we are past the stage where it's just a box checking exercise. So we need to do it. Cloud's become the backbone of our digital. I hate the word transformations because transformations always fail. Anyway, we'll call it digital infrastructure or business infrastructure. Compliance requirements are evolving, frameworks keep changing, and others are adapting to address emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning. So as I said, multi-cloud complexity. Multi-cloud is the new reality. Organizations are using multiple cloud providers, which complicates compliance management. Ensuring consistent security policies across these environments is extremely challenging, but it's critical. So it's not just multiple cloud providers, but we've got hybrid multi-cloud. We've got things we'll see in a minute. We're coming back on premise, so we have to be able to cope with not just public cloud, but our private cloud as well, and somehow normalize these compliance environments and get a normalized risk score across them. Regulatory expansion. Current regulatory frameworks are still causing us headaches. GDPR is getting ever more strict and the fines are rising as those court cases mature, evolve, and are tested. Depending on what industry you're in, you will have to comply to specific regulatory frameworks. So healthcare is HIPAA. Or it could be NIST or SOC 2 or ITAR if you're really unlucky. Key trend 3, emerging regulations for 2025. So there's increasing privacy regulations that are coming in, but it's kind of an old story that I'm not really telling you anything you don't know. What I am wanting to tell you is about the new AI regulations that are going to come in. So everybody's using AI, depending on how we use it. We're kind of doing it blindly at the moment. There's an executive order in the US, and that landscape will change with the new administration, and that is as much as I will say on that, except that it will probably move towards more innovation than regulation in the near future. However, as always, as we did with GDPR, the EU has the nanny state attitude, and we've come out with a tome of regulations that you need to follow, and we will talk about that later. But we need to get this balance between innovation and regulation right. So I always favor innovation, but that's because I'm I like innovations and trying to see what breaks. So the other thing that's key trend is we're seeing people repatriating public cloud workloads back onto co-location or private data centers. And this is partly to do with compliance obligations. It's partly to do with the cost of developing AI systems in the cloud. And the worry that we're going to have our data stolen, our training data stolen out of our models. And we it's funny, we got over this hurdle about public cloud being insecure about 5 to 6 years ago. But now we don't really want to trust it for AI. And I think that's fine. I think that's a good place to start. Be cautious. And also the cost of those GPUs is extortionate in colo, let alone in public cloud. So for a number of reasons, it's single-digit percentages that are repatriating. It's about 7 or 8% of clients that are bringing workloads back on-prem, but it's rising. But the gradient is still going towards the cloud. But that's something that we need to take into account when we're doing our compliance. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with a lack of centralized visibility, with workloads distributed across multiple cloud providers, on-prem environments. Getting a single compliance status view is almost impossible. We got these dynamic workloads, they're ephemeral nature, spin up and down. So maintaining continuous compliance is an ongoing challenge. I mean, I say challenge, it's pretty much impossible without the right tools, but we do what we can. And we've got misaligned security and compliance goals. So security teams, as I said, tend to focus on technical controls while compliance teams prioritize regulatory reporting. This misalignment can lead to gaps. And then we've got the resource constraints, whether that's headcount or the tooling or the investment or just the drive to put the tooling in there. But honestly, I understand that I'm representing a vendor here, but I didn't always, and I truly believe that you get this automation done, then it's going to really help. Just put that effort in and get those boring tasks automated, and it's going to really give you a massive advantage. I'm about to hand over to Ryan to show you exactly how Tenable Cloud Security does that. But while he's setting that up and I pass my screen across, I'm just going to ask you to do, this is the last poll, I promise, and give me an idea about where you are in your journey towards AI compliance. There's all this regulation coming in. I don't really, well, I won't poison the pool by telling you, but these are the different levels that you could be at. So I'm going to let that run, and then I'm going to hand over to Ryan to show you the tools that we have in place to help you with your compliance journey today. Over to you, Ryan.
All right, great. Thanks, Tom. All right, so I'm sharing the Tenable Cloud Security dashboard now, and I'm going to start by just talking about how we can help solve the problem. So when I look at the polls, 45% of you say you're doing ad hoc or reactive monitoring of compliance in the cloud, and then 59% said it's because you lack the tooling, skills, resources to do so. That's one of the things that we can help with. So we support AWS, Azure, GCP, OCI, as well as like on-prem or self-hosted Kubernetes. We can deploy those compliance standards across the entire cloud footprint and show you in one place in a normalized way how you're complying with a given compliance framework. So if I go down here to the compliance widget, we can select something like GDPR here, and we'll see that overall I'm 54% compliant across my entire cloud footprint. I didn't have to do anything but enable this for this to be here. We have all of these out of the box. And if I drill in, we'll see that I'm showing the articles beneath GDPR where we have technical controls that we can observe in the cloud to tell you how you're complying. So expanding one of these, like security of processing, we'll see all of the policies that we have that map to Article 32 of GDPR. And we'll see at a glance for each of these policies how we're complying, and then counts of what we assessed and what failed. So if I look at something like DynamoDB table is not encrypted with KMS, I'm 25% compliant here. I have 12 that have been assessed and 9 have failed. I can drill into any one of these if I want to see more information about what it is, why it's a problem, drill into the specific findings for those. And we'll see here that our findings are dynamic in severity. So this is one policy, but it has many different severities, and that's based on the context behind the finding. So the relationship for us is a policy has one-to-many checks. It maps to one-to-many compliance standards. And the compliance standards are what you would map across the cloud footprint. We can easily produce reports for different compliance standards as well as many other things. If I go in here and say, I want to create a compliance report, I'm going to give it a clever name like GDPR, and then I can scope this for whatever level I want. So if I just want to cover my AWS environment or a specific account within my AWS environment or what have you, I can scope it however I like. I can choose the compliance type, GDPR here, since that's what we chose, and we can provide this as a PDF for more management style reporting, or a CSV for more of the, I'm a remediation team, how can I fix these problems? I pre-generated this because it takes a moment and we're a bit short on time, but this is a report of my AWS organization called org2. It was pulled today. It consists of 6 accounts, and I'll see a summary overall by what we passed and then of what we failed, where we have critical findings, high findings, medium findings.
So basically, you just print that out and hand it to your compliance team if you're a DevOps guy or a DevSecOps guy, and your day is a lot easier, right?
Yeah, if you want them to fix the problems, you could hand them this report, you could hand them the CSV report. We also have automation for driving workflows to your downstream tooling where those teams live and where they work. But this higher level visual report will show the different articles and how you're complying with the given article, and then it will show each policy within a given article and how you're complying with that. So I mentioned automation rules for driving workflow. So all of these findings that are identified in the compliance reporting or the compliance violations, you can set up automation rules for those. And in these rules, you can scope for whatever you like. I'll just choose my AWS organization again. And then here you can really get granular in terms of what you want to drive workflow for. So I could say things like maybe all findings that have a minimum severity of high. So it can be all the findings that are higher critical in severity. and I want you to drive action based on that. But we can take this much further too. We have the concept of labels in here, which are essentially like tags. So you can tag your, say, critical business application A, and then apply that as a label here. It's automated. I'll just choose accounting because I don't have business application A, but we'll pretend this is business application A. So now what we're saying is I want to drive workflow for all high or critical severity findings. And remember, our severities are contextual or risk-based, but only for those resources that support production business application A. I could further say I only want to select specific policy types. Like maybe I only care if a malicious file is detected in a virtual machine or in a container image. Then I choose what I want to do with that. We have a lot of boxed integrations. We also support webhooks if you want to create your own integration. But I could create, say, a Splunk event for all malicious files that are detected in my environment. So hopefully that gave you an overview of how we can help automate compliance across your multi-cloud environment. Thanks. Back to you, Tom.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ryan. Yes. So I've been through the pain with a financial regulator, taking screenshots and putting them in a spreadsheet. That already makes me a lot more hopeful for the future. Right. So we got a lot to cover. So let's get on with it. So how AI changes compliance practices in 2025. So AI strategy and planning is essential for organizations to remain competitive. I think we all know that. They've got powerful applications for predictive analytics, threat detection, and these are driving AI adoption across all industry sectors. And the market's expected to grow from 538 billion in 2023 to 2,575 billion in 2032. And if it sounded like I was reading that, that's because I didn't memorize that. However, business leaders across the globe are still lacking the tools and resources to ensure secure use of both internal AI systems and protect themselves against AI-driven threats. So, what's the role of AI in the future of cloud compliance? Well, there's a number of things that are going to transform the way we do compliance monitoring. We can have real-time monitoring. AI tools can detect and remediate misconfigurations in real time, ensuring compliance is maintained continuously. Now, if you've been looking at anything like SolarWinds or an other, we saw the Salt Typhoon attack as well. We don't want to give God power to our security tooling. However, maybe we trust our AI just as much. Okay, so the state of AI is that AI can do most things better than most people. So we're not really far from the point where we're going to have a more reliable AI than we would if we brought in human error. So, as much as it sounds kind of scary that an AI is going to come in here and fight against AI to keep us secure, I'm afraid that's where we're going. But right now, I suggest we have some manual intervention. And so we can do predictive analytics. So from here, we can say, well, maybe this changes, this changes, this changes. And we can say that we are at increasing risk of this vulnerability based on our configuration. And we can run automated audits. So we can generate compliance reports automatically, significantly reducing the manual effort required for these audits. And that's music to my ears. I don't know about you. What's not music to my ears is the regulations that are focused on AI systems in prohibited and high-risk use cases. And in comes the EU AI Act. Now, we'll get on to what prohibited practices are. I'll give you a hint. It's stuff like creating cyber attack tools, facial recognition, social scoring, and things. Now, they will be prohibited by February. So if you're doing any of that stuff, either move it out of the EU or get it done early. This is why we have an upcoming AI compliance storm. The storm is coming, but what if we can use AI to manage AI? That we used to say we need to use the cloud to manage the cloud, and this is it's a pretty straight analogy, if you ask me. So what if we could get our AI algorithms to find out where we aren't complying, and if we're not auto-remediating yet, then we will do in short order. So that's the pros and cons. One thing I wanted to bring your attention to is one of my former employers, guess who, did a survey of the top 5 most commonly cited emerging risks in Q3 2024. And the top one was AI-enhanced malicious attacks. I think you can see that there. AI-assisted misinformation. And down there we got misaligned organizational talent profile, so kind of like the skills gap. But I just wanted to say, look, this is emerging threats. That means they haven't happened yet, and they're difficult to predict. But we'd be silly not to be planning for this right now. So what if we could use AI to navigate this storm? So as I said, we need to use AI to manage AI, and we'll talk about that a bit further. But what if we could not only identify any potential attack paths, but identify the least effort steps to remediate that using consolidated data from AppSec tools, code libraries, and infrastructure? Like, let's say there's 7 stages in an attack path. So you've got an open firewall, you've got an OS vulnerability, you've got an application vulnerability that's listening on this port, and then your crown jewels are this database that is listening on the wrong port, or it's got a vulnerability. What if we could not only map that attack path, not just in public cloud, but on your on-prem? So your public cloud talks to your on-prem, and we can find out these attack paths, and then we can say how much effort is required to fix this and do predictive analytics on what the impact will do. So it might be that you just want to change a firewall, but if you close that firewall port, we need to then be able to simulate what impact that has. And we're getting there. We're getting there. It's not so far away that we will be. It's basically an arms race, but AI is your friend. I'm a proponent. We just need to know what we're doing with it and stay ahead of it. That's it. But talking of navigating the storm and some of the emerging features, I'm going to hand back to Ryan for another quick demo on some of the capabilities that we are developing here at Tenable, and he'll give you a rundown. So back to you, sir. What can you tell the people at home?
All right, great, thanks. I'll share my screen again. Okay, so Tenable is helping customers deal with this problem by first inventorying the AI resources in your cloud environments. So if I go here to inventory, AWS, there are various categories here, but under AI and machine learning, you'll see things like Bedrock agents, Bedrock custom modules, and SageMaker notebook instances. I'll select the SageMaker notebook instances. You can see I have one in this demo environment. I can see a lot of identifying information about what it is, where it is. And if I drill in, it'll give me all the identifying information here. And then I'll see some findings related to this. So this is sort of the intersection between AI SPM, meaning like AI resources that are available, and then the security posture management of those AI resources. So these are some findings that have been identified on this SageMaker notebook instance. And I could drill into any one of those to see the detail behind them, including some contextual information and how to go about remediating this. We give step-by-step remediation guidance. But one of the things that Tenable is known for in our cloud security environment is our CIM capability, or Cloud Infrastructure Entitlements Management capabilities. So this is really going to help you take that next step and not just understand where you have AI resources deployed in your cloud environment, but who has access to them, meaning what human and non-human identities have access to those resources, and do they need that access? So the first thing we do is we do a complete inventory, and we gather all the information about all the ways that you've granted permissions or entitlements to a given identity, and then all the ways that those can be restricted. And we arrive at net effective permissions. Next, we take those net effective permissions and we monitor cloud logs like CloudTrail in the example of AWS to determine which of those are in fact in use. So if I look at the IAM graph view for this SageMaker notebook instance resource, we'll see it's huge, right? There are so many things that have access to this. And we'll see some colored lines here that indicate whether it's in use or not. So if I go here to usage is used, this will show me what's actually been used. You see how much smaller this is. So these are really the only permissions that appear to be required to this SageMaker Notebook instance. And yet, what have we granted? We have granted all of this. Why? Because frankly, we don't know any better. This is one of the biggest challenges in the cloud environment. The cloud providers do not make it easy at all to identify what net effective permissions look like for a given identity. And they also don't do a great job of monitoring the usage of those entitlements. So that's one of the big differentiators for Tenable. Similar story on the DSPM side of things. So we also can look at DSPM data in the same way. So looking through all your cloud storage to identify where you have things like PII data or PHI data or cardholder data, that sort of thing. And we can filter on those categories, like I'll choose PII in this case, and we'll see these are all of the cloud storage areas where I have PII data. Again, we'll see like where is it located, what account, some other information. And if I drill in, we'll see all the details, the data that was identified in an overview fashion, detailed findings, so we can see like redacted SSN in this case. So it's easy for customers to answer the question of where do we expect sensitive data to be? It's a much harder question to answer when you put in there, not just where do I expect it to be, but where is it in fact, right? So data has a way of migrating to places we don't expect it to be. So DSPM capability really helps you stay on top of that by identifying not just where you think the sensitive data lives, but where it actually lives. And that has big implications on the compliance side of things. But it doesn't stop there. So we can help you identify where your sensitive data lives. But again, we can leverage that KIM capability that we have to then tell you all the same things that I showed you with AISPM around DSPM. So who has access to this sensitive data? Again, this is a huge graph view. Not all of them look like this. We can see this in a table view as well. So we can see like, this is the identity, these are the permissions, this is how they've been granted. So I can drill in and see how those permissions have been granted. But at the end of the day, you're trying to solve the problem of like, do we have over permission to this data? So if I choose again, usage is used here, we'll see again, this is much smaller. And this is something that we typically see in customer environments as well. There's a lot of excessive permissions in the environment, and we have findings to help you identify where you have those excessive permissions. And that's particularly interesting when we're talking about sensitive data in DSPM or AI resources as we start looking into AI compliance. Thanks. Back to you, Tom.
I can just come off in mute in time, then fine. Thanks very much, Ryan. Yeah, fantastic. So the poll results are in, and while I'm starting to share my screen, I really can't multitask, so I'll read them out once I've done it. So hopefully I'm sharing the right screen, schoolboy error not to. So I asked, what's your current view on the incoming AI mandates? And 34% of you have said we're monitoring pending mandates and have plans to adapt our business as necessary. 14% of you said we're monitoring pending mandates and we'll figure things out sometime next year. Fair enough. 28% of you said we are not focusing on AI compliance at this time. Sure, right, but this is as good a time to start as any, and at least start to have these conversations. I mean, realistically, like massive fines aren't going to be coming in, but we want to, well, not for a few years. But we certainly need to set ourselves up and stay ahead. And it's a competitive arms race, really. If we know our constraints, then it's going to help us. So, and 24% of you said you don't know, not sure, and that's absolutely fair enough. As I said, most people aren't doing anything about this, and they may not have even thought about it. So we'll come back to that in a little while. But as promised, we're going to tell you how to design a sustainable cloud compliance strategy for our current state and the near future. Obviously, each compliance strategy is going to be different, and people like us at Lionfish help users of security technology tooling design each customer's own unique journey, and professional services at Tenable can do something similar. We've got to meet the customer where they are. But there's some standard steps that you can do that everyone has to do in order to find out, where you are and take a snapshot. So we need to understand the compliance obligations by looking at what frameworks we need to comply to. Obviously, if we're in healthcare, it's HIPAA. If we're, almost everyone's in PCI DSS. It could be FedRAMP and SOC 2. Geographical footprint. So if you are fortunate enough to have data flowing in and out of the EU, then you have to comply with GDPR, and this new EU AI Act will be one. But California has some pretty stringent privacy laws as well. And we need to identify all of these compliance obligations, look for overlapping requirements, and then consolidate them down. And this is why at Gartner, we didn't really take questions on specific frameworks, because nobody can really know the ins and outs of every framework that's out there. We used to just set best practices, encryption at rest and transit. If you comply with best practices, you will comply with 99% of all compliance obligations outside of some of the really the military level controls. And then we have to establish ownership of compliance assets internally. And then in a minute, we'll talk about ownership of who's responsible for what. We need to map those compliance obligations to our cloud architectures. First of all, we need a comprehensive inventory of all our cloud assets and services and data stores. We'll talk about how we might do that a bit more efficiently in a second. Establish clear ownership, not just between the organization and the CSP, but internally. Who owns these assets? Who do I need to kick to get this fixed? And a good tagging strategy will help you with that. There's a webinar and loads of resources on that if you're interested. And we need to use automation tools to map regulations to specific cloud native services. So use a KIM, DSPM, CNAP to look at your storage configurations and encryption settings. And I'm not going to go through this. There's another webinar, as I said, an entire webinar on this. This is an updated shared responsibility model that I made. I don't even call it a shared responsibility model. I really call it a split responsibility model, because it's more like, what would you say? A declaration of what your cloud secure service provider is not going to take responsibility for. And also, if you see, my pointer works here, you see at the edge here is a diagonal line, and it's not diagonal and straight, it's kind of wiggly. So there's a very gray area when it comes to the delineation point between cloud service providers, and that differs across IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So a whole webinar on that if you want, but we need to use these things and be happy with them. I'm not going to go into the whole of CNAP. I've been talking about this for 5 years, and quite frankly, I just want you to know, when we invented the acronym CNAP in the market and defined the market, we really were trying to get fewer acronyms. So if you take away nothing from this, then look at all the acronyms that are in there. They all come under CNAP. So we did create another one, but we were trying to get rid of CSPM, CWPP, and just call it CNAP. And in the main, that started to happen. But the thing that's setting us apart for this conversation is protecting our data. Now, it used to be that we would identify all of our sensitive data stores, we would monitor them, we would make sure that they're encrypted, we're doing key management, we've got access control on all those keys so people can't get access to them to decrypt our data or encrypt our data, even worse if they encrypt it and delete the keys. So that was cool back in 2019, but now we still need to go and find the sensitive data out there that we didn't know was out there, because a developer somewhere has taken a snapshot of your production data and stuck it in an S3 bucket that's not being monitored. So now we need to go out into our environments and our workloads and discover these hidden sensitive data stores. They might be structured, unstructured, someone spun up a database, and we need to have a tool that will crawl through our networks and crawl through our cloud infrastructure, identify buckets that are being used, look at the data flows, assess the values by looking at the metadata, what's in there. That's quite important because we don't want to be scanning all of your data as a third party, whether it be Tenable or anyone else. We just look at the metadata and then see who's accessed this, what's the probability of it, what's the format, am I detecting email addresses, etc. And then we will raise those concerns to you and say, like, did you know about this? All right. And I'm going to skip through because I want to get onto some of the AI stuff if we've got time. And we are running low on time. So we need to embed compliance into our cloud design and development using compliance by design. We've talked about security and privacy by design before. We need to use infrastructure as code and adopt SecOps practices in order to continuously enforce these. I think I wrote the third ever white paper on DevSecOps in 2014. And the reason I know that is I could only find 2 other blogs on the internet that I could reference. And by reference, I mean steal from. Unfortunately, Dev Compliance Ops wasn't quite as catchy or sexy, but it's the same thing. We need to get these compliance obligations into the workload and the work stream as early as possible, have privacy by design, privacy by design, and compliance by design. We need to use these compliance management tools that we talked about, DSPM, CNAP, to automate the boring stuff. You can get the slides and read these. I'm not going to read them to you. But we also need a continuous compliance and adaptability mechanism. So we need to conduct continuous compliance audits in-house. We need to use dashboards, real-time compliance metrics, and regular internal compliance checks using automatic tools. So we know where we are at any given time, and then we can simulate external audits. So you don't always know when you're getting audited. So if we can say, right, here's our preparedness, and we can prove it by this, this, and this, and here are the artifacts, we just need to submit them. And then we future-proof by adopting AI-enabled tooling and building relationships with compliance experts to stay informed about emerging trends, which is what you're doing now. Well done, everybody. So I'm going to give you the key takeaways now in case we don't have much more time to get into it. But to summarize, I just wanted you to take away from this, like the cloud compliance landscape is obviously complex and evolving. Multi-cloud adoption and emerging technologies are making this so. The new challenges, such as lack of visibility, dynamic workloads, and misaligned goals between security and compliance teams, is causing us to have security gaps. AI is transforming the way that we do compliance. We can use it to help us, but it's also going to come with some overheads that we need to be prepared for. It's the Wild West right now. We can pretty much get away with anything, but it's not going to be that for long. So, best to get ahead of it. I actually wrote an AI agent in about half an hour that does some of my work for me. So, chat LLM, everybody. A sustainable cloud compliance strategy requires understanding obligations, mapping compliance to architectures, embedding that compliance in the design, like I said, with the DevSecOps processes, and ensuring continuous monitoring and adaptation when new changes are made, and we can make smart decisions about how our cloud workloads perform. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Ryan for a little bit more, and hopefully we can squeeze in some of the AI compliance challenges when we come back. So thank you, everybody. Back to Ryan, sir.
All right, great.
Take it to the bridge.
Tom. All right, so I'm going to take things up a level, and I'm going to talk about how Tenable can help you not just understand your cloud resources, but understand your entire exposure attack surface across the different products that you may have with Tenable. So we can see here, this is the Tenable One workspace where we have cloud security, we have attack surface management, identity exposure, vulnerability management, PCI, web app, and so on and so on. And let's just talk about inventory for now. So let's say you're a Tenable vulnerability management customer, you're scanning your own say corporate environments, data center environments, that sort of thing. You also maybe have some web applications you're scanning with our WAS product, maybe even have like a manufacturing plant that you're assessing with our OT environment. And now you have some cloud resources that you're using our cloud security product for. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to understand what your attack surface looks like for a department that may span all of those different areas? That's really what Tenable One is here to help solve for. So it's an aggregated inventory of assets across all the different areas that you have coverage for. So in this case, we have some vulnerability management, some identity exposure, some web app, cloud scanning, and OT. So this is a consolidated view. I can add various filters here to filter down this data. I can also just click one of these chips to see, what data do we have for cloud security. So these are all my cloud security resources that I have pulled into here. So aggregated inventory across the various products. Also, aggregated weaknesses or findings across all the products. So these comprise of misconfigurations as well as traditional software vulnerabilities. So we can easily choose, say, misconfigurations in this case, and we'll see all the misconfigurations that we've identified. That's helpful on its own, but at the end of the day, we want to be able to apply business logic to understand, like, what is production application A or department B? What does the attack surface look like for those? And we can do that as well. So we can create tags. Those tags can consist of data from all the various products, and then pull them together to represent this is business application A or department B or whatever the case may be for you. Beyond that, we can also create attack path analysis. So we will analyze attack paths across the various point products as well and tell you about where you have attack paths. So if I look into Discover here, since we've been talking about cloud compliance, I'll choose cloud, and there's an attack path here for Lambda token theft. So I'll see the list of those here. If I click the graph view, it's going to show me that I have a Lambda function that's exposing secrets through an environment variable that would allow me to essentially steal application access tokens. So this is the attack path. I can drill into these nodes to get more information about them down here. We can ask questions of them. I can also look at the attack type. These map to the MITRE attack framework. So you can see here it's technique ID T1528, I believe. And if I follow that link, it's going to take me to the MITRE attack description for that attack technique. So all of these are mapped to MITRE attack framework. Again, just trying to help you understand not just we have problems here and we have problems here and we have problems there, but how do those tie together to represent a greater risk to the organization? Another area of coverage that we have is called Lumen Exposure View. And this is going to show us a graphical representation of how we're doing overall. So we have these things called exposure cards. A global exposure card is going to show you your overall score across all the categories. So if I look at these categories in this environment, we have an OT environment, say a manufacturing plant. We have web applications that we're assessing with our DAST product. We have computing resources from VM. We have identities from our identity exposure product, and I can see the different tags here as well. We can compare ourselves to a benchmark, like this industry that I've put this lab environment in is information technology, but this could be anything that fits your business. We can set SLAs and see trends, see how efficiently we are against our SLAs, and many other metrics here. So this is the default exposure card that shows everything, but I can also create cards for specific uses, like AWS All is an example. So this is an exposure card that I created that represents both AWS test and AWS prod environments. And these resources have been seen with both vulnerability management and cloud security. So we're doing like traditional Nessus scans or agent scans against these, as well as using a cloud security product. A lot of customers will use those in tandem. So this really just allows us to represent, the business applications or departments or environments that you want to see. And There's another card that I'm looking for here, which is, here it is, all business applications. So these are my cloud-hosted business applications. This could be something that belongs to, say, Department A as an example, and I can see, per exposure, per tag. So these are the tags contributing. Again, your trends, your remediation, what tags are contributing most to your overall score. So hopefully this helps you understand how we can pull all the data together beyond just what you're seeing in cloud, but what you're seeing across the board, and try to represent areas of your business and applying that business logic to understand how are we faring overall. Back to you, Tom.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ryan. That's absolutely fantastic. So in the time we've got left, I'm going to get as much of the AI compliance stuff done as possible. You can get these slides afterwards, you'll get the recording, or you can email me, or you can email Tenable to get a copy of this. So let's not mess about anymore. So preparing for AI compliance. So we need to be conducting continuous compliance audits. So the challenges, I won't read them out to you, but basically we need to be creating models without bias or discrimination. We need to have transparency on what training data, and if you look up any AI system, especially Suno for music at the moment, they've been dragged through the courts and had to admit that they scraped the entire of Spotify to train their music models, and we need to be upfront about how we're training our data and what we're doing. Here's your AI governance framework and key considerations. You need to look at all of your AI systems and classify them by a risk level. The EU AI Act has a very definite picture of what those are, and I'll come on to that in a minute. We need to protect our data and have robust data governance and security measures. So DSPM will help you. What data is going into our AI models? We need to be able to prove that and show that to the auditors. And even it's just good practice to know that we're not going to be leaking sensitive data once we start using this internally or externally. And so we'll come back to the end in a minute. So what is a prohibited practice? Well, the EU states any prohibited practice has certain uses of artificial intelligence that include AI systems that manipulate people's decisions or exploit their vulnerabilities, systems that evaluate or classify people based on their social behavior or personal traits, and systems that predict a person's risk of committing a crime. Yeah, that's not the case in every country. So, yeah, we are literally looking at the Black Mirror, our Minority Report, where the EU takes a dim view of that, and I think that's fair enough. But certain advanced persistent threats will do it anyway. However, facial recognition and social scoring, if you're doing any of this good stuff, get it done now. In the EU AI classifies high-risk systems. They're more like, is it going to be interacting with critical infrastructure? If it is, you have a nightmare of scrutiny coming onto you, or certainly a lot that you need to be prepared for. Is it going to be dealing with sensitive data, like people's health data? Key dates to be aware of, February 2025, so roughly, 6 weeks from now. All those cyber attack tools that you're developing with in-house with your AI, you're going to have to at least pretend you're not by the end of February to the EU. And then we've got a bit of an on-ramp before it becomes fully enforceable. However, these things take time. So I'll send you these slides. There's a handy tool. I always say, use regulation and automation to help you address regulation. And the EU AI Act gives you this handy step-by-step checker tool to find out your obligations, and you have to classify all of your AI systems, as they call them, in your wheelhouse. Create a dedicated AI response capability. Now, people roll their eyes at this when I was at Gartner saying this, because we can't just all do that. But it could just be one person in your team that is dedicated to staying on top of this, or even part of their time. But it has to be a dedicated response capability, looking for suspicious activity in your AI systems. And we need to integrate into our current workloads to increase that efficiency of the incident response using iteration. And we'll slowly integrate this into what we're doing for normal monitoring. So future implications, evolving regulations, global standards. We need to get that innovation regulation balance right. Too regulated, we don't get anything done. Too much innovation. You've seen Terminator 2. Public trust and acceptance will change over time as well. And we could be heading for a time where we get predictive real-time compliance, where systems can dynamically adapt to new regulations. Yeah, don't worry, it'll all eventually be handled by the machines, but enjoy it while it lasts. So my recommendations are, so we didn't really talk too much directly about unknown exposures, but that's where we were going with DSPM. We've got unknown sensitive data just exposed to the world. So I'd say you need to invest in a DSPM-enabled CNAP or just a DSPM product as a high priority in 2025 to help you with all these mentally complex workloads and extend those cloud concepts into hybrid multi-cloud. So bringing some things like zero trust back on-prem and have this one view. Prepare for AI compliance and be open to switching and consolidating security providers. Now, with that, when I say consolidation, we also have to model the impact of losing one of these vendors. If we consolidate too much, well, we remember what happened when CrowdStrike pushed that update out earlier this year. The whole world stopped. And thankfully, my phone was turned off. I turned it back on. So we have to model the impact of losing one of our providers. So as much as it's nice to consolidate where we can, we shouldn't be left in a situation where we haven't planned for losing one of them. And do your innovation in a friendly jurisdiction and do it now before compliance and regulations kick in next year. And as I said, use technology, AI automation to create continuous assessments. There are some resources, an entire white paper on how to use DSPM to simplify your EU AI Act compliance, easy for me to say. And we've got demos and other resources as well on the shared responsibility model. Now, I think we've answered most of the questions that we had coming in. If there's any more, then Ryan or David, please speak up. But I don't know. I think we've done most of them.
There are several questions, Tom.
Yeah.
I don't think we have time to really answer them on the call. And so the people who left their name, we can follow up with them directly. There's a couple of anonymous questions related to global exposure cards. Unfortunately.
That would be a Ryan question. So.
Yeah. So if you want to wrap it up, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, if you have any further questions, you can find me on Twitter X at SE Cloud Services and Tom Crow, lionfishtechadvisors.com. And your friendly Tenable team are here to help with any demos. And thank you very much for your time. I very much appreciate you joining us. I know your time is important and I'm grateful that you were able to attend. And I hope I've given you something to take away. So thank you very much. And with that, I shall say goodbye and have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.